Ultimate Show. Now, you'll notice that James and Andrew are both wearing big L's on their head, and that is because last week they both got 4 wrong in the pick'em, and I only got 3 wrong, so that makes me the big winner. Speaking of last week, the game of the week was San Francisco and Seattle, and San Francisco won that one 27-18. So that's the first thing we'll talk about today. I will start watching this game. It was a very interesting game because it was very tight until the third quarter. San Francisco really stepped up their game. Their defense put in some major work, and their offense just capitalized on Seattle's turnovers. It was a very good game up until that point. So I don't think the score really reflects how it went, considering that Seattle had that heartbreaking loss to San Jose the week before.
Day before then.
The day before. I'm sorry. So, that being said, James, what do you think on that?
Like you said, it was a closer game than the scoreboard puts up. I mean, Seattle fighting through after San Jose handed them the upset. They come back a day later and they have to face a very tough team in San Francisco, who was honestly the first 3-0 team at this point. They did as well as they could. Their offense really stepped up when I think at one point they made it a 1-point game after being down by 5. So Seattle definitely fought. They definitely showed heart, but at the end, they just didn't have enough to pull it through. They just ran out of gas, and San Francisco ran away with it at the end of the fourth. It was a very fun game to watch.
I didn't really catch a whole lot of it. I was busy watching the Radicals game, but
Andrew,
we definitely kept an eye on it.
This week's game, I didn't really catch a whole lot of it. I was busy watching the Radicals game, but we definitely kept an eye on it.
Radicals Winchell
game, but I didn't really keep my eyes on that game. I was too focused on Radicals Winchell. So, yep. And now, speaking of the Radicals versus the Winchell game, normally we would start out with the South Division review, but since James has some special information for us, let's go to him with the Midwest Division first.
So with the Midwest Division, Madison hosted a really good weekend. They were surprised to have so many fans out for this game.
Madison hosted a really good weekend. They were surprised to have so many fans out for this game.
Just over 1,000 fans, so that sends a good tone for the league and championship weekend. Exciting news for me. I'm going to be a traveling salesperson for the AUDL championship weekend. So I'm looking for some groupies on the road. Hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to keep track on me and my road trip. We're going to Indianapolis this weekend. Road trip. So that should be a good game. But the game from this week, Minnesota Winchell, just did not come ready for this game. Madison took it down early and often, and I think towards the end of the game, the Winchell just got really distracted and tried to make a lot out of nothing. Just a couple of bad decisions on offense the second half. Granted, they were down 20-8.
Just a couple of bad decisions
at one point, and
on offense the second half.
Some of the Radicals fans thought they were down 20-point them. So it was really a really good atmosphere for
some of the Radicals fans thought that they were going to 20-point them.
But players still played pretty well. Madison's got a little bit of work to do. They had a few possessions where it looked a little sloppy, but that's something they worked on during practice on Sunday. But for the Winchell to go in the next game, beat Chicago, I think that sets them back on track. I think Chicago will be a little bit slower out of the gate than I thought. I think Chicago's going to be struggling this year. I know in my preview for the year, I said Chicago would be my third seed, but at this point it's a toss-up. Minnesota played well against Chicago. Detroit is, they didn't lose by much to Pittsburgh, but a loss is a loss. But they did beat Cincinnati in week 1. But in
they didn't lose by much to Pittsburgh, but a loss is a loss.
From week 2,
but they beat Cincinnati in week 1.
It was pretty even across the board though in that Chicago-Minnesota game. Not a whole lot of points being scored.
It was pretty even across the board though in that
this year.
Chicago-Minnesota game. Not a whole lot of points being scored.
Pretty good defense. I know the Midwest is known for their good defense. Chicago will be alright, but I don't know if they'll make the playoffs at this point.
Pretty good defense. I know the Midwest is known for their good defense. Chicago will be all right, but I don't know if they'll make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
and I heard that there was actually 30-mile-an-hour
action
winds over there in Chicago for that game. Yeah, it is definitely.
It is the Windy City,
definitely Windy City action. Yeah, and then one more game to add to that.
On the road,
Indianapolis beat Cincinnati 22-17. Friday game. Yep.
I actually watched that game. I actually watched it. It was.
Yeah. All right, so yes, Winchell picking up their first win, and that was actually the game that determined who lost this week in the pick'em. So now, James, the other big loser, let's hear about your South Division.
Yes. Okay. So, unlike one person who just happens to not be wearing an L, I got my lock of the week right. I picked Dallas to win over Austin. I guaranteed it, and they did, a 29-18 victory. Actually in Austin, and surprisingly, it wasn't a bunch of Dallas fans. Austin had over 1,000 people in their stadium, quote unquote stadium, and a lot of them wearing Austin Soul jerseys. So, I mean, nice work on Austin pulling in fans from your area. It's honestly hard watching these games. Dallas is such a phenomenal team. Like, they have, I know I've said it before, but they have the squad. Like, I can't say anything other than that. Like, their starting lineup is ridiculous, and it started off really the same. A hard time generating point. Like, that first point was hard, but after that first point was scored, it just went like clockwork. And I find that weird. Like, honestly, I don't know what to say about Dallas at this point other than they are favorites to win the South. Austin, they showed heart. Like, they kept it close in the first quarter, but as the game went through, it just became more and more of a deficit. And props to the fans for sticking through that heartbreaking decimation, because it really was hard to. I can imagine being a fan in that situation. But Dallas picked up the victory over Austin. They're starting off 2-0 and at first place in the South Division. The next game is Atlanta versus Charlotte. Atlanta was the home team. A narrow victory, 18-16. Charlotte was down by, I think at one point, down by 5, 6, and they came within 1 point. This is not the Charlotte we know from last year. They are much more consistent, and they're better than they were last year. Like Andrew said, a loss is a loss, but this definitely shows that Charlotte has potential. And against a team like Atlanta, Charlotte scored the last couple of points in this game. Just time ran out, and they didn't have a chance for an actual comeback, but they scored the last couple of points. They held Atlanta, and they were fired up. But Atlanta picked up the victory, and I think this gives Atlanta like a message. This is how they didn't make the playoffs last year. They started off well, a little bit shaky in the season. They ended with a 10-4 record last year, but certain games, they let it go at the end, and it really cost them a playoff spot to Jacksonville. So Atlanta is going to have to take this game and look forward, and they're going to have to say to themselves, we need to do better. We can't let up because we have a lead. And I say for Charlotte, keep doing this. You showed a great game in the first game of the week against Raleigh, and you showed a great game against Atlanta. All they need to do now is win. That's all that's left for them to do is win. They're showing talent. All they need to do now is win. Raleigh, next game, Raleigh versus Jacksonville in Raleigh. Raleigh pulled out a 5-point victory. Raleigh pulled out a 5-point victory. It was 24-19. I picked Jacksonville because Raleigh's defense is not always the best, shall we say. But they did really work on their defense for this week. Like, they even had something called the break hammer. Every time their defense scored, like, this dude brought out this huge hammer and smashed the bucket. So that was really fun for the fans to watch. Raleigh picking up the win against Jacksonville. Jacksonville, again, they tried to make the late comeback, but not enough time. You got to start off strong if you want to win these games, especially against these tough teams. So, yeah, Dallas beat Austin in Austin. Atlanta beat Charlotte at home, and Raleigh beat Jacksonville at home.
Okay, so very good by Charlotte and Austin. Austin bringing in the fans, and Charlotte putting up 2 really good fights so far. Great job for them. So now, I was wrong on my lock of the week for the West Division. I picked Seattle versus San Jose. We really unanswered points there towards the end. So Seattle is definitely in it. So we'll see what this means for playoff implications. But San Francisco took it to the house on that one, and they're the first 3-0 team so far. And probably what I called it the game of the bottom feeders last week, but I really don't think so. These teams played phenomenal. LA and San Diego. Now LA won 21-20. Busted pretty much everyone's picks in the group. San Diego was such a force last year, and LA really couldn't do anything. But LA pulled it out. Battle of Sunshine, that I should have called it instead, because LA is definitely on the rise. And actually, this week they just signed the 2010 Callahan Trophy winner. His name is, he was from Oregon, and his name is Eli. So LA is definitely on the rise. So we get to the West Division, and James, first week in the East Division. So let's hear about that.
So for the East Division, we saw this first week Ottawa with that tough back-to-back. They played New York first. Everyone knows, well, in the East especially, if you pay attention to the East, you know how strong of a defensive unit New York and Ottawa is. It's no question, honestly. I didn't get to see this game, but I know the Dross brothers, they put up a fight against Ottawa, definitely. Ottawa actually made it a closer game than I thought they would. 5-point deficit. New York doesn't normally let up 19 points, of course, unless it's against Toronto. But Ottawa's not Toronto, so props on Ottawa. They put up a fight, but then the next day they turn around and DC takes advantage of those tired legs and the fatigue. I actually watched the game, and Ottawa put up a fight in the second quarter, but honestly, DC, they took advantage. And Jonathan Helton was not playing that game, so I want to see how well they do with Jonathan Helton on the field. But you know, all I saw was Matt Zuka most of the game, and then one player named McDonald. I don't really know his first name. So, yeah, DC was lighting it up. For some people, they're a favorite to win the East this year. I wouldn't go that far to say that. My personal pick, like, when I set my picks at the beginning of the division, I said Toronto, New York, and DC. Is I don't think Toronto, the only thing they really did was change leadership. And for me, New York still has the defensive unit. But DC is definitely capable of making the playoffs again and possibly going far. And I wouldn't put it past them to go to the Final Four, but they do have work to do, as well as New York. Ottawa starting off 0-2. You know, that back-to-back road games, they're not fun. And New York and DC are starting off 1-0. So props to them. Ottawa, I think all they need to do really is get back on their horse and just keep going. I mean, I saw good things in those games. But, you know, New York and DC are two teams known for taking advantage of any opportunity they can. That's like, New York is a playoff team every single year, and DC, you know, they're consistent every year. And those are the reasons why. They're capable of seeing opportunities and they take it. So, you know, I want to see how this season goes for the East, but New York over Ottawa and DC over Ottawa.